our objective for our time together today is to share a few stories, insights, challenges, and learnings that we've experienced at Wiz over the past 2 years as we've grown from early stage 0 to later stage $100 million in ARR. So in a short period of time, we've seen a tremendous amount of change, and with change comes breaking, and we'll cover that today. My personal intent is to, in some small, minuscule way, share something that benefits you or your team or your company on each of your journeys. So, as the lovely Will Rogers once said, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from poor judgment. So hopefully you can utilize our poor judgment to your advantage in a positive fashion moving forward. So to jump in a bit, we're going to cover breaking in general. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Learn how to use Zoom. Breaking in general. Today we'll focus on the following areas: what breaks, how to perceive and plan for breaking points, what absolutely cannot break, and then we'll summarize it in a few key takeaways that we apply to our operation every day and hopefully are of some value to each of you. Before we begin, a bit about me, a bit about my background. I've had the privilege and have been so fortunate to work for the amazing companies you see on this slide, from Big Fix to Duo and Blazant and IBM. And more importantly, I've been so lucky to be surrounded by incredible, exceptional business partners and wonderful, talented mentors and leaders. My goal is not only share a bit about Wiz, but how they and those experiences have helped shape my perspective. Like most of you, I joined a startup, Wiz, because I believe that we could change the world. I believe that through our technologies, we could improve companies and people's lives and outcomes. And so while it may sound a bit naive, we'll get to the importance of that belief and that commitment in just a few minutes. To start, let's talk about what breaks. And most importantly, let's define breaking, because there are countless definitions of breaking. You can Google yourself if you see fit. One definition, the definition that I subscribe to because I believe it's the most applicable to us in our industry, is to break is to cause something to stop working. And remember that, because when something stops working, we have to find a way to make it work again. So now let's talk about what breaks, or should we say what stops working. What breaks? The question seems so simple, and the answer is in fact quite simple, but it comes in the form of another question. What doesn't break? What doesn't stop working when you scale from 0 to 100 million in 2 years? So when you look at this slide and you see these lists of examples, we're going to focus on quite a few with our time today, but if we had to list out and review everything that broke in the past 2 years, we would be here for a very, very long time. Eventually, I would lose my voice, you would be bored, and no one would have fun or take anything away of any significant value. So whether it's teams breaking or processes breaking or structures breaking, or most recently, the economy seemingly breaking, there is no end to the list, but we're going to focus on 3 prime examples. The first example is people. I'm also sensitive today. I know what you're thinking. People? If a person breaks or stops working, doesn't that mean that they're on vacation or tired or retired, excuse me? Not in this context. People aren't going on vacation or retiring. If you think about it, people are any company's and any leader's most important resource. It was, in fact, people who had the idea. It was, in fact, people who founded the company. It was people who built the technology. It was people who invested in the vision. It was people who built plans, people who met with and supported customers, people who created processes. You get the point. Without your people, you don't stand a chance. And so with that said, I'm curious, and I know it's not interactive, but how many of us, it's a rhetorical question, have heard things from others in the industry like, I love the startup environment, or diametrically opposed? I've been working at X big company for the last 20 years. I wake up thrilled, excited, happy to go to work every single day. The truth is, people migrate to the environments that they enjoy. They develop skill sets that are relevant in those environments. They thrive when they're positioned appropriately. Now, there's the easy table stakes. Of course, people need to be provided for, encouraged, supported, coached, led. But at our core, we as human beings go through life, go through experiences, and we learn what we enjoy. And equally as important, we learn what we don't enjoy. And so as leaders, we need to come to terms with the fact that every company evolves and business requirements change and resource requirements change and skill set requirements change. And so the wonderful, amazing, talented people that have led us to achieve where we are today may or may not be the people that are the right people, the right resources to help us achieve the next corporate milestone. And milestones in and of itself can be subjective. I think as an industry, we focus often on revenue milestones. That's what tells us where we are in our journey, where we are in comparison to others, where we are on the maturity curve. There's 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 5. Maybe it's 5 to 15, maybe it's 5 to 20, maybe it's 20 to 50, maybe it's 20 to 70, so on and so on. So when we think about our company, I encourage you all to change your perspective a bit, not adopt our methodology, but find your own. We think about our company as if it were a child. As an infant, our child company required a specific set of parenting skills in order to help it achieve its potential. As a teenager, our company requires an incredibly wildly different set of parenting skills. So think about a scenario where you have an incredible early stage employee, incredible human, incredibly talented, but they make it clear they have no interest in being the parent of a teenager. Does that make them less awesome? Does that make them less talented? No. They simply need to find a new opportunity that represents the type of opportunity and role where the business needs match their happiness and skill set. Sometimes it's the stage of the company, the business requirements, the skills required. Sometimes it's we don't have the opportunity on our side that they deserve and need to grow into. In any case, one of the hardest parts of going from 0 to 100 in 2 years, and what broke and what continues to break and makes us all emotionally upset, is you have to learn to expect to lose great people for all the right reasons. It is okay. It is the right thing to do for everyone. Our responsibility and how we see it is to help every wizard on their journey, whether it's at Wiz or life after Wiz, to help them find the next opportunity, to help them reach their potential, to help them be successful and happy. So expect to lose great people, plan for it, get comfortable with it, and then react appropriately. Be supportive, loving, caring, and help them find what's next. Our next critical example is communications. We have a saying that it is very rarely contention or conflict. It's most often communication. When you think about scaling from 0 to 100 million in 2 years, there are 2 specific ingredients that are absolutely required. The first is velocity. You have to move. You have to move today, you have to move tomorrow, you have to move this week, you have to move next week. You are always on the move, and you have to move fast. But in concert with moving fast, you need universal excellence. Your work product cannot deteriorate or degrade as a result of the pace. They're equally as important and equally accountable for your success. So to execute flawlessly in unrealistic periods of time, you need to establish communication methods and mediums that facilitate every employee, every team, every department's success in your environment. If you look at the images, on this slide, the top left is our first revenue onboarding class in February of 2021. 14 people, a very nice, comfy Zoom. If you look at the image on the bottom right, it's our company kickoff in Miami in May of 2022. Now, even my description should be an indicator. Comfy Zoom, 14 people, in-person company kickoff, hundreds of people. When your team is small in terms of number of people, it's much easier to figure it out, make it happen, make it work. For example, our revenue team, from about 15 to 40 employees, team members, every day we did a random Zoom. There was no calendar invite, there was no consistency to the meeting, there was no agenda for the meeting. The intention was every day, whoever was available, to come together, get on a Zoom, and talk, communicate. What did we learn that day? How could we benefit from one another's experiences? Where did we need help from the team or around the organization? What pieces of critical or pertinent feedback did we have to share? Does it sound fantastic? Yes, it was. Does it sound fun? Yes, it was. But do you know what happened at about 40 employees, 40 team members? It broke. It got very quiet. It was no longer an effective communication method to distribute feedback, questions, requests for help. We had to change. It was broken. It no longer worked. Another example, one of my favorite human beings, people on the planet Earth. He's a dear friend. He's a business partner. He's one of our co-founders and VP of product, Anand Kostika. He's living in Israel. I'm living in Colorado. So for those of you who can Google, it's a 9-hour time difference, meaning we had very little overlap during normal business hours. What did we do? We took to texting nonstop about everything under the sun, from product innovation to customer feedback, to sales process, to his love of Singapore, our love of art. But as we grew, it became more and more complicated. A funny story actually is there was a topic last December, right around the holiday season. We were texting a lot. And I'm not exactly sure or certain how many texts. We'll go with hundreds because thousands makes us seem insane. We'll go with hundreds of texts over a week-long period. And I remember, same topic, mind you, I remember at the end of the text thread, I had to ask him a question, which was, do we agree or do we disagree? Because the problem, the challenge was so complicated, so complex, required and warranted so much thought and scrutiny and discussion, I had lost my position on it over text during the course of our thread. It was a wake-up call. We needed to evolve. We needed standing calls, time set aside. We needed to give the topics the attention that they warranted. So, comms is critical. Make it a priority today. The only way to understand what needs to change is to have a starting point, a foundation, a blueprint. Focus on comms, make it a priority today. Moving to our last example, two of my favorite quotes from two very different people are both focused on planning. So Benjamin Franklin once said, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. Very wise man. Mike Tyson once said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. You're laughing because they don't drive, and I understand. But the two things can be true at the same time. This is specific and very real evidence by the image you see below. So remember, it is responsible. It is our responsibility of leadership of the company. It is prudent. It is meaningful to plan. It is equally important. It is mature. It is a necessity to realize that in hypergrowth, your plan will break regularly. View planning as both an exercise, point in time, and a habit daily. Do it often. The more you do it, like any other skill, the better you will get. The more you intimately understand the details, the quicker you are to adjust. Planning early, often, consistently will make for better outcomes. It will increase your probability of success. So to walk you through what you're looking at, our plan just last February for the revenue organization was to hire 22 sales professionals and close $8 million in revenue. Now, an $8 million revenue target and a hiring target of 22 people in our first operating year was ambitious, to say the least. We knew the opportunity was big, but we thought, let's set our sights as high as we can possibly go and adjust if necessary. Fast forward 30 to 60 days. It took maybe a month or two to realize that our plan was no longer working. We're behind the scenes tracking all the metrics: pipeline created, advanced, closed, revenue conversion rates, meaningful meeting interactions, marketing return, you name it, we were measuring it. But the reality was, in 30 days, our plan broke. It no longer worked. We had to tear it up and build a new one, which you see on the bottom of this image led to some amazing outcomes. Now, I do want to take a moment, shout out to our amazing team, all of our wizards who, without you, we would never accomplish this. But when you look at the numbers, at the end of our first fiscal operating year, in which our plan was 22 people, we ended north of 100. In which our revenue target was 8 million, we ended north of 40 million. We 5x'd both sides of the plan. So, lesson learned. Don't defend your plan when it breaks, because it should. In hypergrowth, your plan should break. Learn from it. Debrief on it. Pull strategic insights from it. And then build a new one. Planning is a great exercise and habit. Do it often. But accept that it will break, and that's a good thing. So now that we've walked through some examples of things that can break and how they can impact your future, both positively and negatively, I'd like to spend some time on what I believe to be is the most critical subject we will cover today: perspective. How do we view breaking points? How do we view breaking? How do we define failure and losing? And it's critically important because it will define your culture. For us at Wiz, we never lose. It's not in our vocabulary. We learn, we improve, we grow. We don't lose. We learn, we improve, we grow. We realized 3 to 6 months in that we were going to have to grow and evolve as a team and as a company every quarter. Depending upon the success of the previous quarter, we knew we needed to change the game regularly. Change management is hard. Growing from 0 to 100 million at any company in any period of time is a remarkable accomplishment. It's also scary. Growing from 0 to 100 million in 2 years is terrifying. Terrifying. We realized as we continued along our journey that our perspective was breaking. our people were beginning to fear the necessary change rather than embracing it. We saw what I like to call stress fractures and exhaustion in places where we had never experienced it before. Now, the fix wasn't more PTO. The fix wasn't more fun team events. The fix was mental. It was our perspective. Because of our success, we continuously raised the expectations, which drew attention. And that external perspective was influencing our internal perspective. It was unhealthy. We had let others influence us in ways they never should. So we decided we need to take back control. And we sought out, as a leadership team, sources of inspiration. And for me, I found it in BGK, Billie Jean King. For those of you who aren't sports enthusiasts, she's a remarkable professional tennis player, but a remarkable human being who's done so much for the LGBTQ community and communities and civilizations around the world at large. And what she gracefully said that resonated with me in our predicament was, pressure is a privilege. And for us, that meant these raised expectations, this level of continued success. You know what it's done? We've earned the opportunity to feel the pressure, to have the privilege of the pressure, to continue to set records, to continue to change the landscape, to continue to build more innovative and valuable products for our customers and partners. Let's not fear it. Let's enjoy it. Let's embrace it. Let's call it an opportunity and run after it and try to capture it. So when you leave here and you're in the midst or the throes of your next product launch, or your next marquee marketing event, or your next customer user group, or executive business review, or your next end of quarter, end of year as a sales organization, remember that the pressure you feel is a direct result of the opportunity you've created. Embrace it and enjoy it. So people often ask, how did you guys do it? What's the secret? What's the recipe? And well, the answer to that question is quite fascinating. It starts with, we agree we're not smart enough to be smart enough, and therefore we should rely on one another and others around us to be successful. I think the more informative and helpful answer is actually, what did we learn not to do? What were the mistakes that we started to make and realized that's not a good idea, and changed course very, very quickly? And so the next thing we'll walk through is kind of the hit list of mistakes. How do you gut check yourself? How do you gut check your team? How do you gut check your company? And how do you do that often? So these are some of the ways we can break it. And now that I've shared them, ignorance is no longer bliss. Now that we know, you have to be mindful of them and avoid them at all costs, because they can be incredibly distracting, disempowering, and destructive. So mistake number one, what I call the playbook mistake. We all have experiences that shape our thinking. Be cautious. No two human beings are alike. We're all snowflakes. It is what makes us all individually beautiful. The same thesis can be applied to companies. No two companies are the same. Create your way. For us, we call it the whiz way. Don't use your old way. It just won't work. So be careful about the difference between using your experiences to shape your perspective and using your experiences to dictate your future. Playbooks are a mistake. Create your own. Number two, failure, the perception of failure. It's bad. We failed. Uh-oh, what do we do next? If you see negative reactions to opportunities to learn and grow, stop and address it immediately. It happens. We're human beings. We're committed. We're passionate. When things don't go the way we expect them to or want them to, we react with emotion, and that's okay. Bring your whole self to work. But be mindful of the impact of your reaction. And if you see it in others, let them know, hey, your reaction wasn't fair. It didn't help. It wasn't constructive. When you see it in yourself, take time and think about it. Come to terms with it. This is a critical mistake that can break everything. It can set the wrong tone for the wrong culture and create a company that you don't want to be a part of. That is breaking. Mistake number 3, pace and quality. We talked earlier about the necessity for velocity and excellence. Don't let perfect get in the way of good. If you do, people will break, processes will break, work products will break. Set clear expectations for individuals, teams, groups, departments, companies on what is acceptable and what is not. And use unacceptable as opportunities to coach and grow. It will empower your people to produce better and faster. Number 4, what I call the vacuum theory. We've all had great ideas. Some of them we've never shared. Some of them weren't great. Never, ever, ever think you have the right idea by simply discussing it internally. Learning to lean on others, leveraging the ecosystem of incredible people around you, family, friends, customers, partners, teammates, mentors. Internal validation means you're on the right track. But you have not arrived at your destination until somebody else has carried you there. For example, my wife has no interest or has never been or aspires to be part of our tech community. But I talk to her about work-related topics, especially ones that I know have magnitude and consequences, because she has fresh perspective and lack of understanding. It's a different data point to help shape my perspective. Make sure you're leveraging those around you to get it right. Don't be right, get it right. Lastly, limiting the possible, something we do far too often as a collective, specifically within go-to-market. My favorite quote is from Arthur Clarke. He says, "The only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible." Question everything. Why do we do it this way? Because it's always been done this way. Because all the great companies do it this way. Because everyone else says to do it this way. Question everything. Break the limits of the possible your way. Go optimize your potential and your output your way. Don't allow some list of rules or best practices to define who you, your teams, your company can be. Create your own. Push the boundaries. This is one case where I highly recommend you break it. Break all of it. Okay. So we've talked a lot about what can break, what will break, the consistency of things breaking, how to interpret and react to and plan for and prepare and leverage breaking. The most important piece is what can absolutely not break. What can't break? Because there are fundamental elements of any company, team, organization that are musts. And they can never break, ever. If they do, the company is broken. The two are your values and your mission. Define them both early. Define them both often. They may or may not change. That's okay. But define them. Write them down. Say them out loud. Hold yourself and everyone around you accountable to them. Our values and our mission are the common language that ties us together. They are what dictate how we do it, not what we do. So if you think about, for example, culture. Does culture break? Does culture stay the same? No. Culture is a living, breathing entity. It has to evolve. Our rule is every new wizard that joins our organization should impact and improve our culture. It has to change for the better. But the underlying foundations, our values and our mission, are what hold us accountable to each other and our customers and our partners and our communities. Remember, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. Define those characteristics early and often. So, in closing, if you take anything away from today, please take these things. It is 100% going to break. Be excited about the opportunity it presents. The hard part is it's almost impossible to speculate or assume where or how or when it's going to break. So be curious, ask questions, dig deep often, but know something is going to break, and more often than not, multiple things are going to break. That's a good sign. Be excited. Number 2, make sure you have the team, the people, the values, what ties us together, and the mission, the commitment to everyone outside of your 4 walls, because when it breaks, they will be your guiding light. That is what will drive you past the breaking point into the future of your company. And lastly, practice the art of breaking. Because it happens often, we have to get good at dealing with it. Find the optimal ways to work through it together. Find the optimal ways to fix it, improve it, and find the optimal ways to move forward as a collective, because the future is always brighter than the past. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Colin. All right, now we can get to some questions from the audience. We have a good amount here. All right, so the first one here is, if employees and revenue increase by 5 times, is your customer acquisition cost around 3 or 4 times the ASP for each customer?
No. So not to go into too many details because we can't share too much, but there are standards that we have to abide by as an executive team, and financial metrics that we simply hold ourselves accountable to. So no, we are not spending more money just to create more revenue. We're doing everything as efficiently as possible.
Got it. All right, that makes sense. Another question here. He says, pretty sure that's the first time Benjamin Franklin and Mike Tyson have been quoted in one setting. Nice job. The actual question, though, is how much is too much planning?
It's a fantastic question, and paralysis by analysis is very real. I think one of the important exercises to go through and maybe a monthly or quarterly basis early on is to sit down as an executive team and make sure that the outcomes are driving the KPIs, which are driving the objectives, which are driving the strategies and the tactics. Make sure you have cross-functional alignment as an executive team, because that level of unity and consistency transcends into better performance of each group individually. So short answer, monthly or quarterly as an executive team, and then track the changes within patterns of your business, and trust your gut.
Love that. Always go back to just trusting your gut. Okay, next question we have here is, what is the one thing in 10 years when you look back that you will wish that you did differently?
One thing in 10 years we wish, look, there's a laundry list of things I wish we did differently already. In 10 years, I'll answer that question. Is that fair? When I think about the question in the time period, whoever asked it's a really thoughtful question, so thanks. The time period is challenging because when you're in it, it's very hard to be reflective, right? To think about, oh, this scenario unfolded a certain way. We spend more of our time, focused on what are we seeing, what are we hearing, what are we feeling, and then discussing it and reacting to it as fast as possible to make sure that one little bump doesn't absolutely derail the train. But reflection, I think, will come long after, not anytime soon.
Awesome. All right, we're getting a good amount of questions here. Okay, this is a good one. How do you make sure that you don't lower the hiring bar when you have to hire a ton of folks fast?
It's a fantastic challenge. I think it's a challenge that often instigates concern or fear across the organization when you're growing as fast as we did, and rightfully so. Um, Look, I think the transition from network hiring to at-large hiring is difficult, but the first step is awareness. We are reaching a point here where hiring has to ramp fast. We need to make sure we have the right resources on staff, the right coaching across the organization, the right tools and processes, clearly identified ideal candidate profiles, roles, responsibilities, hiring profiles, the right approach, the right tone. We need to be fishing where the fish are, and we like really different kinds of fish at Wiz. So it's not an easy answer, but I would say number one is it's a great question, which means and indicates you're aware. Number two is bring it to the table and have the conversation openly so that you can formulate an organizational plan, not a plan for a team or for a department. Make the investments.
Awesome, thank you. All right, another question here from Sean. When looking at growth and not knowing much about your go-to-market, what was the split between direct selling versus indirect and channel selling? How did your selling motion change over that 18-month sprint to 100 million?
Yeah, the blend is still changing. So I don't want to make a statement and have it indicate or lead anyone to believe that that we know what the future holds, because we're seeing an evolution of our business much like everyone else is right now. Very early on, we as a go-to-market team established that we wanted to diversify our routes to market within our go-to-market, meaning different channels and alliances. And ultimately, we wanted to provide customers the option to procure our solution in the way they saw fit. And so we have been building and ramping our channels and alliances team, who's fantastic, since day one. And that's everything from how do we partner with large CSPs like AWS, Google, and Azure, to how do we partner with some of the global value-added resellers like Optiv, WWT, Presidio, and TT, excuse me. List goes on. And then more regionally, because they exist, right? In different pockets of the world, you have very specific regional partners that are very trusted resources for our customers. So GSI is another example. We're diversifying over time in order to make sure that our customers have the opportunity to purchase our solution any way they see fit.
Got it. Thank you. That detailed response. All right, next question here. Let's go with during a time of layoffs, I'm sure people are afraid of overhiring. What advice do you have for scaling quickly but smartly, and what metrics would you advise during this period?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. We talk a lot about, and it sounds very cliche, but how do we control the controllables? How do we every day scrutinize and optimize everything we do, every part of who we are, in order to make sure we're maximizing the output with the resource pool and the teams we have? Because the tried and true and dated theory of feet on the street, more people equals more outcomes equals, it's not necessarily true anymore. And so when we're looking at the macro climate, the impact to our business, the demand from the market, and the appropriate coverage models to not only message to sell, but also support our customers. Like a big part of this is making sure our customers are maximizing the return on any investments they're making. We think about machines and people, and we need people to operate machines, but it's our responsibility to create machines to drive those outcomes at a very efficient cost. So from a metrics perspective, I would look at what's happening organically within your business versus what the tried and true theories are, and then build a customized plan to make sure you're maximizing the output of your investments.
Oh, that's really helpful. All right, next question we have here is, how do you retain all-star employees during a time of breaking?
Transparency, right? we talk about change management as if it is a corporate responsibility shared by all. In order for us to capture the opportunities we create, we as a company understand change is a necessity. And everybody needs to play a part in when we change, how to maximize and drive improvement through change. And change is hard, make no mistake, but we enlist the entire company in our change management exercises, regardless of what functional area it resides, to make sure that we support each other through change. And I understand the delineation between top talent. We believe that every one of our wizards is special and magical, and they all bring something to the table that can drive success through change. And so we don't bifurcate based upon some arbitrary credential. Every wizard is involved, and we do it together.
Got it. Love it. All right, next question is, how did you get into a sales leadership role, and what advice do you have for aspiring sales leaders?
Okay, I'll give the long answer because I think it's important. I was a college soccer player, a below average college soccer player who dealt with a series of injuries. And then I went even further down the stack. I was terrible. And I remember sitting down with my coach at the time and saying, you don't have to play me out of respect. I understand that I'm a 3-year captain, but you don't have to play me because there are people on this team that are better than I am. And he looked at me and said, you're not out there because you're good, which is really a backhanded compliment. He said, you're out there to make everyone else better. And it changed my life. It really was the starting point for, I want to pursue leadership because I want to positively impact the lives of others. And I knew that in order to achieve that goal, I needed to prove that I was capable myself. I needed to go through the experience of hard work and sacrifice in different roles in order to convince people that I was committed and capable. And then it really came about at Duo, and it's a huge credit to Jim Sib, Jason Stutt, Jennifer Lawrence. When I initiated the conversation, they wrapped their arms around me and helped me understand long in advance of what being a leader by title, or so to speak. They helped me understand what it meant to lead the right way, to be a servant leader, and to never deviate from your values. And so I would say it's a combination of commitment and opportunity. Surround yourself with great people who are better than you, and they'll help you improve and achieve.
Awesome. You kind of touched on mentoring a little bit there. So the next question relates really well from Ryan. Who has been your most influential mentor, and what experiences cemented your conviction and unwavering commitment to people and principles?
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish between mentor and role model. Mm-hmm. For me, I have incredible mentors that have meant the world and continue to mean the world to me in helping us succeed. But my role model, for me, where it all starts, is my mom, single mother, 3 boys. Like, she just figured it out. She was a school teacher. She just made it happen. There was no, we never wanted for anything. So I go back to the very beginning, and I remember maturing and just saying, like, I don't know how she does it. And that mentality is something that I try to apply every day to make her proud.
I love that answer. That's great. All right, I think we have time for just a few more before we wrap. Next question is, what's the hardest part you did not see coming from 0 to 100 mil?
Huh.
Or maybe you saw it all.
No, it would assume that we saw something coming. Look, we had an inkling early on based upon some of our pre-revenue customer engagements that we were on the right track, right? And so to say we didn't see success as a part of our future is not true. We knew we could be successful, we didn't know how successful. And we knew that if we listened to customers, we would be more successful. So that whole part of our equation is binary. What I think is the hardest part, and will continue to be the hardest part, is when it happens this fast, you're not afforded the time to learn how to work together, for example, right? Like, we're a global company distributed in different continents, working different times of day. we're all doing our best, but as human beings, we never had the time to sit down and engage and just learn. And so the hardest part for me has been making sure that we consistently bring our people together to enjoy each other and learn from each other and celebrate each other. And as a result, learn how to work best together.